Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the English Daily Book Summary YouTube channel. In order to not stop learning, listen to an English book summary every day for free.
Paul Millard, The Pathless Path. Imagining a new story for work and life. Have you ever chased a promotion, mortgage, or milestone only to wonder, whose finish line is this anyway? The path we're typically nudged toward, passing through college, up the corporate ladder, and arriving at an idle retirement, once was solid ground. Now, cracks are starting to appear. Automation shuffles jobs, side gigs blur careers, and the old success markers feel oddly hollow. If the idea of swapping one corporate badge for another no longer sparks joy, you might be sensing that life has more settings than just the default. Swerving off that well-lit highway sounds equal parts thrilling and reckless. You'll trade applause for questions, certainty for curiosity, and tidy 5-year plans for open-ended experiments. Yet those who wander report surprising gains. Time stretches, creativity reignites, and the nagging race to keep up loses its grip. They aren't fearless. They've simply learned a different arithmetic, one where alignment beats ambition and aliveness trumps achievement. In this blink, you'll learn why the familiar default path is wobbling, how small prototypes can help you veer safely into new territory, what it feels like to travel a path that draws itself beneath your feet, and the daily practices that keep you oriented once you're walking in that way. Ready to take the road less traveled? Well, let's get started. The Default Path Explained. Remember the life manual we were handed in school? Work hard, collect gold star grades, land a respectable job, then keep your head down until retirement. For decades, this default path felt like a sturdy bridge across adulthood. Lately, though, the planks are creaking. Automation, mass layoffs, and the side gig economy have scrambled the once tidy sequence, and people of every age are starting to feel the wobble. Graduates notice it first. The career ladder they were promised now looks more like a roller coaster. Reorg today, redundancy tomorrow, maybe a contract gig if you're lucky. But the tension doesn't stop at 20-somethings. Plenty of seasoned professionals reach the doorstep of retirement only to find that freedom feels more like a slow shuffle into insignificance than a triumphant finish. Underneath the surface hums a shared question. Is this really the best story we've got? Sticking with that old script is understandable. The pull of societal expectations, money, prestige, and approving nods from friends and family often keeps us on the familiar path. And when we struggle to imagine alternatives, the trap tightens. It's far easier to picture the next promotion or raise than to visualize an entirely different life. When you aren't aware of the alternatives, it's easy to believe there's no choice but to keep treading in the footsteps of those who came before you. Most people need a jolt to break the default path trance. One flavor of this shake-up is the wake-up by loss, a layoff, a health scare, or the sudden absence of someone dear. The illusion of certainty shatters, and the urgent thought appears. If tomorrow isn't guaranteed, why spend today on autopilot? The other flavor of shake-up is wonder, an awe-drenched hike, a side project that unexpectedly lights you up, or a conversation with someone thriving miles off the beaten track. Either way, a broader horizon flickers into view, and the default path starts to look painfully narrow. However, choosing a new route isn't a fairy tale escape. Ambiguity becomes a roommate, skeptical relatives chime in, and income may dip before it rebounds. Yet many who step off report surprising dividends. Time feels roomy, curiosity turns into a compass, and work orbits life rather than the other way around. Satisfaction morphs from a distant finish line into a daily sense of alignment. The point isn't to swap one rigid template for another, it's to become more aware, intentional, and open-minded. Once the default path is seen as optional, the road ahead widens into one of endless possibilities, and that single realization can change everything. Veering off the beaten track. Have you ever caught yourself daydreaming about a new job, certain that swapping desks would finally make Mondays sparkle? As enticing as a fresh start may sound, the key to an exciting work week isn't a different position, but a different relationship with work itself. One that treats a career more like a series of living drafts than a finished product. At first, think of each draft as a low-stakes prototype. Rather than resigning on Friday and opening a bakery on Monday, you host a pop-up stall one weekend, freelance for a single client after hours, or take a mini sabbatical to test remote life. These micro moves don't require superhero courage. Instead, they shrink the magnitude of your anxiety until your curiosity overwhelms your fear. Even a tiny test can deliver a jolt of clarity and often unexpected opportunities you couldn't have planned. We love tidy reinvention stories, the one grand leap, a triumphant selfie, the happily ever after. Yet, change is invariably far messier. Dozens of tweaks, dead ends, and awkward in-betweens that never make it to a person's Instagram story. But embracing that mess liberates you from perfection paralysis. When each step is just another experiment, failure becomes invaluable data for the next iteration. The brain, of course, is liable to fight back. It compares the uncertainty of the unknown with the familiar discomfort of your current situation. Then it quietly adopts a coping strategy. Late-night scrolling, a wipeout weekend, Sunday retail therapy, and labels this familiar routine comfier. Reframing your perspective helps. The cost of familiar misery may be greater than unfamiliar discomfort. Nagging thoughts that focus only on worst-case scenarios is handy. Guides make the journey lighter, too. Seek out path experts, people who've already tested a version of the life you're flirting with. People already off the default path will often be eager to share their experiences and insights because they understand firsthand the importance of iteration and collaboration. Their stories can help turn distant possibilities into concrete next steps and remind you that alternative routes aren't just theoretical, they're populated. In this way, stepping off the well-paved road will slowly but surely rewire your social world. Corporate success can buy a polished, self-sufficient bubble. Wandering into less scripted territory requires, and rewards, interdependence. Community replaces competition, mutual favors stand in for formal perks, and vulnerability becomes a bonding agent rather than a liability. Remember, veering off the beaten track isn't about erasing anxiety, it's about walking beside it while you explore. Small prototypes, recalibrated risk math, and the wisdom of friendly guides turn uncertainty from a powerful deterrent to a companion on the journey. One that leads toward a life that feels uniquely yours. The Pathless Path explained. Imagine walking through mist where the path ahead reveals itself only as you take each step. That's the riddle of a pathless path, an itinerary you can't see until you're already moving. At first, this idea sounds absurd. We're trained to trust signposts and milestones. Yet once you stop demanding a perfectly drawn map, faint outlines of possibility begin to emerge, inviting curiosity to outmuscle caution. Where the default path offers clear ladders and social applause, the pathless path swaps certainty for adventure. Instead of despairing, which rung am I supposed to grab next, you wonder, which direction feels most alive, even if the final destination is fuzzy. Stepping off-road means accepting that progress may look more like wandering than climbing, but every detour provides data you can't gather from the safety of a well-lit highway. The pathless path can also be thought of as aspirational rather than merely ambitious. Ambition chases goals you can already name: a 6-figure salary, the corner office, a respectable 5-year plan. Conversely, aspiration encourages you to follow your inner compass, pointing you to less tangible outcomes such as freedom, creativity, or a sense of service. Although more ambiguous, your internal value system will make the external reward system pale in comparison. Similarly, competition evaporates because you're no longer running the same race as anyone else. Each small experiment, whether it blooms or bombs, adds compound interest to a personal portfolio of insight, resilience, and skill. The odds of winning increase dramatically when you're the one defining what a win looks like. The Pathless Path also reframes the obsession with being right. The aim isn't to draft a flawless life plan, but to run live tests on ideas that feel worth your limited time on Earth. Some trials will crash spectacularly, others will swell into callings, yet each iteration yields information unavailable from the sidelines. This mindset shift reframes mistakes as valuable feedback rather than failures, and this keeps you from slipping back into the default logic that equates detours with defeat. Again, discomfort and uncertainty don't disappear, but trade places with curiosity and possibility. What begins as a tentative step into the fog evolves into an ever-surprising adventure of self-defined progress. Each move clarifies the next, you operate from your values, and rewards accumulate in ways a linear resume can't capture, proving that the most reliable road might be the one you draw as you go. Walking in the way. You'll notice a quiet stillness once you take that first step off the default path, the kind that lets new questions, ideas, and insights bubble up of their own accord. Lean in. It's worth asking, what actually matters to me? Why am I exchanging hours for paychecks? What does a life that feels alive look like? Follow these clues, and you'll find yourself finally following your own storyline. Similarly, pay attention to the breadcrumbs you may once have dismissed but suddenly look like sparks worth kindling. For instance, a community that just feels like your tribe, a hobby that greedily steals whole Saturdays, or a charitable cause that stirs something deep. Treat these as critical clues to the conversation you're meant to have with the wider world. Relatedly, although the Pathless Path is inherently personal, it's rarely completely solitary. Keep trusted companions in your orbit, people who can handle half-baked ideas and provide gentle nudges when old comforts try to reel you back. Your path experts can play an invaluable role here too. They've likely encountered a similar experience on their own journey. Thriving off-trail will also require ruthless focus. Shiny distractions, follower counts, number of brand deals, easy money can quickly hijack the authenticity of your adventure. Return to your inner compass at such times, and remember that operating based on your internal value system as opposed to the external reward system will always lead to more aligned and meaningful outcomes. Similarly, a wholehearted commitment to the pathless path will give your wandering forward motion. When you pick a craft, cause, or long-form project, make a pact to give it your all for that week, month, or quarter. Each piece of output, whether an essay, melody, product, or neighborhood workshop, will light your next step, defining whether you continue in the same direction or pivot slightly to the right or left. In this way, creative momentum isn't a luxury, but the engine that keeps your unique path unfolding. What holds it all together is faith, not blind optimism, but a quiet commitment with yourself to keep moving despite lacking a complete schematic. Admitting you don't have every answer actually widens your playing field, leaving room for unexpected opportunities to slip into view. Ask anyone who's charted an unconventional course, and you'll hear some version of that trust at play, whether they call it intuition, spirituality, or just a stubborn gut feeling that refuses to go unacknowledged. And if you're still waiting for permission to go against the grain and join the pathless path, consider it granted. Pack your questions, text a friend, choose one small promise, and take a step forward. The moment you do, the trail begins sketching itself beneath your feet, and the conversation you're here to have finally gets its chance to speak. In this blink to The Pathless Path by Paul Millard, you've learned that you have the freedom to design a life that feels meaningful and alive, even without a clear roadmap. Stepping off the default path isn't about grand gestures or overnight reinventions. It's about small, curious experiments that reveal what truly matters as you go. By treating uncertainty as an opportunity rather than a problem, you swap the exhausting race for external approval with an internal compass of values that can evolve alongside you. Progress becomes less about accumulating trophies and more about living with a sense of purpose, usefulness, and joy. The reward is a widening horizon where work serves life, creativity compounds, and comparison fades into collaboration. Trust that each small, authentic step will sketch the next stretch of road, and the path will unfold, electric, adaptive, and entirely your own. Okay, that's it for this blink. We hope you enjoyed it. If you can, please take the time to leave us a rating. We always appreciate your feedback. See you in the next blink.